Hello folks, DWT here, West Truther Channel. I mentioned at the end of my last video, part 2, this is part 3, about Satan as walks about as a roaring lion, seeking to whom or whatever he wants to devour. And I said that's because he was a reptilian and he ate humans. And all of the hybrids of these Nephilim and all these Raphaim and all these other people, these offsprings and hybrids, they are not, we humans are hybrids, but these are something else. These are some monstrosities. And some of them might look like just a big human being, or a human being with powers, but most of them have a creature feature effect. And that's because Satan is a reptilian and he's got a lot of friends, and the CERN wants to bring a whole bunch of them in amongst humanity. It's referred to by some ministers as a time of every possible suggestion to bring in cannibalism, and the ministry is trying to pose these creatures off as being cannibalistic. Now, I'm not, because there is beliefs and documentaries and stories about them eating each other, turning on each other, not just killing, but actually eating each other sometimes too. Back in the day, and the way they're depicted in news and movies and music videos and stuff, and it's the reptilian cannibalism spirit due to the return of the giants and the Nephilim. But you've got to remember, the preachers want to keep you humans believing that it is a human spirit of cannibalism. The real preachers don't want you to know too much about the real creature feature. They don't want to come, they got gag orders on them. They can't come out and say, for crying out loud, it's a telepathic monster with other telepathic monster friends, and part of our government, part of our Swiss Nazi pharaonic bosses and controllers want to have amusement. They want to see humans eat up by animals on a larger scale. You folks think that's just imagination, don't you? Yeah. Big lizards that are badasses, and folks, they like bloody meat of humans over everything else, and all of the artifacts show reptilians eating people. All the statues, everything shows reptilians eating people. People, folks. This is so exciting. In the Bible story that so many push it foretells of plagues and things that are and will happen again and again later at some other time, 1,000,000 years from now, and as in all of history. If the Bible is put together to entice us for thought control and deceive us as to who is fulfilling the scriptures of these prophecies, because the preachers point out that this book says what was will be again. Now, what the fuck is it all about? If it was, and didn't nobody learn, then why has it got to be again? The show did so well the first time that we're going to run it again. Is that possibly what's going on? Well, when I hear men of God saying that the hurricanes and the earthquakes and the lasers that fly across the sky, supposedly being meteors and comets over our heads, and to whatever is targeted, and then the floods and the droughts are all done by God, because the Bible story predicted these things. Then these men of God, when I think about what they just said and professed to, as well as what they're gag ordered not to mention, or they're enticed financially not to want to mention it, then I think about how come these successful men of God know about storms, weather, and etc., controlled militarily, and I for one know that those who ever wrote out that book had some wicked visions about things to come, just like the Illuminati doctrine says. There will be those appointed of the Illuminati who will see to it that the scriptures of the Bible are fulfilled. The God that is at work here is a mechanical and an electrical God, and it puts things in that book that they secretly have had for millions of years, and some humans are waking up and getting smarter to understand this. All these biblical curses are controlled by the authority of the Swiss octagon. The government scientists create these things that give support to the books of written prophecy. And if the days of Noah are to be created before believing eyes again, then they're conducting experiments and testing to see how much more will stupid people be willing to accept. Switzerland is Rome. You folks need to just put it in the back of your head and keep it there and don't let nobody argue it or reason it out. Pharaonic aristocrats, they all originate from Christian, and it's the blue bloodlines. And I thought the Old Testament I always used to think of the Old Testament as history and the New Testament to be current prophecy. But it is a question to me that the current men of God, some who warn of reptilians these days that will kill you and eat you, but they stay away from the flat earth, they stay away from HAARP, they stay away from chemtrails, and they won't touch the 5G, etc., etc. And they're men of God. They're men of truth. They're men of statute, men of honor. And a bunch of these old reptilians haven't changed a bit. And don't you think that those, not just the Pharaonic bloodline has continued on, but the bloodlines of some of these monstrosities have continued on. Whether they think they've got them under control, or whether they're put away somewhere, or whether they're ruling a bunch of people and people are bowing and feeding other people to them. Truth doesn't change. Most of those women who were burned as witches and for anything else was mostly to get the property of the accused, as the Swiss practices for hundreds of years have been, because they call it a buffer zone. And that's where Switzerland wants to keep their cousins real close by. And when they deceive other people and decide to kill and deny the other people of what they were what is rightfully theirs by birth, and to the land and to what's on it, as our military does. They would kill all, and the seed of all of them, the family, sometimes the same as it is still happening in today's life, and you folks you're not aware of it. They continue to repeat similar moves, just as they just add a new or a different type of weapon. The Swiss are the killers for the aristocracy, who are those who have pharaonic powers of dissension, and they wield these powers over you and the listeners. You don't have a clue this is going on. And millions more who can all die in a week. They are clueless of this stuff. And at any location, people just ain't feeling me, no matter where they are, because the government ain't letting what I'm saying get out to nobody. Operation Paperclip handed the business legislature and law and judicial due processes and every election service and everything since then is the last show of the series, and a new stage show will commence with each new act of their play with each new president. And the Boston Tea Party, they gained terrible power over the United States and the people who mentally thought they were free. Then 1812, the same thing repeated. Then in 1860, the people thought that America had won the war against the southern part of America. America didn't win nothing. This country's been owned and operated by the Swiss corporates, unions, bankers, and it always will be. direct descendant of the Caliphate. That guy, Surt, or whatever his name is, on the Young Turks. He's definitely part of the Caliphate. One such act of pharaonic power is the Scot-Swiss Templar Mason of the pharaonic bloodline as an aristocrat of the Swiss Octagon. Now you folks understand and pay attention to what I'm saying. One such act of pharaonic power is the Scot-Swiss Templar Mason of the pharaonic bloodline as being an aristocrat of the Swiss Octagon. Trump is a pharaonic Swiss Nazi. All those in power and position across the whole of the flat earth are 21st century pharaonic aristocrats and descendants of the Atlantean pharaonic pharaohs of Egypt and the descendants of hybrids that came from the Nephilim reptilians defiling the humans and defiling the human hybrids, which was what and is what we really are. Over 180 wars have been started by the United States government. The United States government and country are fully controlled as a part of the Swiss Octagon, which is an aristocratic family of specific bloodlines of the pharaohs of the first ever recorded pharaohs of Egypt, even with Atlantean and reptilian connections. These groups being destroyed are to be robbed and murdered because they want to live free and be away from the control of Swiss Rome. And while the Swiss is there, they just take everything and they sort everything out for Switzerland's pharaohs and family members later. And do you know the term ethnic cleansing? I'm asking every one of you, and you fucking government people too, fuck you stupid motherfuckers. I mentioned this in a video a couple of years back, some of this stuff about ethnic cleansing. Well, check out the terms and the implications of the term of ethnic cleansing. Look it up. Land resources not publicly discovered yet. These are natural resources in lands that the HAARP machines and various other methods and devices and ways of locating and discovering natural resources in the earth's crust, in the earth's skin. These things are being done, and they will kill all the people that occupy that land and take it over so they can gain access to the natural resources. And think of all the different valuables in all of the homes of the people who have lived for generations unbothered by the Swiss Octagon of world domination. Now think about all of the underground of all of North America and all of your little spot on it. Then think of all of the loot that is in all of the homes of all the places in America, and looting is being conducted in the United States right now by the New World Order, which is after every last single thing in existence, including that you are not allowed to live as a group or a people, and you are not allowed to live independently. You will be controlled whether you know it or not. Most are made not to care about themselves or anyone else anymore. We are all faced with a New World Order Zionism, a political Zionism infiltrated and taken over by the pharaonic, by the Pharaoh that will rule the earth as one ruler, and has started with the pharaohs of Rome right down through the Templars order and the Masonic lodges. Now for the majority of us, the reach of the terrible reptilian minds of the pharaohs, bloodlines, are getting rid of all free-minded and taking control over all their freedoms, and this is current affairs. This is a current affair. And it shows why they rewrite history. The New World Order Templar Masons and Swiss Nazis are all over us, and they are destroying as many as they can of their white slaves, folks. And you better pay attention to me, what I'm telling you in this video right here. The white people are being bred out as well as gotten rid of in a whole horde of other ways. This is GWT, the West Truther Channel. You folks take it easy out there, all 2 or 3 of you real mothers.